England was a kingdom bleeding from within. Decades of civil war had torn it apart, and the crown had become a prize passed between families by blood and betrayal. The Wars of the Roses had left the country fractured, the Red Rose of Lancaster and the White Rose of York locked in endless struggle. Villages were burned, noble lines extinguished, and trust itself had become a casualty of ambition. By 1483, Richard III ruled with suspicion and iron resolve, but his crown was fragile, built on broken oaths and the corpses of princes. The people were weary of chaos. They longed for peace, for a ruler who could end the madness. Across the Channel, far from the smoke of England's civil war, a forgotten exile watched and waited. He was young, quiet, and cautious, the last surviving heir of the House of Lancaster. His name was Henry Tudor. To most, he was a ghost, a boy with no army and no hope of return. Yet destiny has a way of favoring the patient. Within a decade, that same exile would return to England, not as a fugitive, but as a king who would reshape its future forever.
Henry was born in 1457 inside the thick stone walls of Pembroke Castle in Wales. His father, Edmund Tudor, had died months before his birth, leaving his mother, Margaret Beaufort, to raise him alone. She was only 13 when she gave birth to him, yet her faith in his destiny was unwavering. Margaret's belief was her armor. She taught her son that his survival was a divine purpose, that he was chosen to restore peace to a kingdom that had forgotten what peace looked like. But belief was not enough to protect them. When the Yorkists seized power, Henry, still a child, was taken into custody and later sent into exile in Brittany. It was there, in a foreign court, that he spent most of his youth, a prince in name only, watched constantly, never truly free. He lived with the knowledge that every alliance could turn against him, that every friendly face might sell him to the enemy. And so Henry learned patience. He learned silence. He learned that power did not always belong to the loud or the bold, but to those who could wait for the perfect moment. The exiled boy began to think like a survivor, cautious, deliberate, calculating. Where other men sought glory, he studied human weakness. Where others charged forward, he learned to endure.
In August 1485, after 14 years in exile, Henry Tudor returned to England. He landed in Wales with a small army of French mercenaries, loyal Welshmen, and desperate souls willing to gamble their lives for change. Ahead of him stood King Richard III, a seasoned warrior with a stronger army and the power of the crown behind him. The battlefield was Bosworth Field, and the dawn of August 22nd would decide England's future. The fighting was fierce, brutal, and uncertain. Richard charged directly at Henry, determined to end the rebellion with his own sword. But at that moment, a crucial betrayal turned the tide. Lord Stanley, who had long kept his allegiance hidden, turned his forces against Richard. The king was unhorsed, surrounded, and struck down. When the battle ended, Richard's crown was found lying in the mud. It was placed on Henry's head there on the battlefield, among corpses and crows. The crown was not given by birthright, it was earned through survival. Henry's first act as king was not vengeance, but unity. He knew England was exhausted, torn between Lancaster and York. The only way to heal the wound was to join the two houses, and so he married Elizabeth of York, the daughter of his former enemy, King Edward IV. Their union was more than a marriage. It was a symbol. The red rose of Lancaster joined with the white rose of York to create a new emblem, the Tudor rose. For the first time in decades, England felt the faint pulse of peace.
Henry VII died on April 21, 1509, at Richmond Palace. He was 60 years old. The crown passed to his second son, Henry VIII, a young man full of confidence, charm, and energy, the very opposite of his father. But it was Henry VII who had built the stage upon which the Tudors would shine. His reign had ended the chaos of civil war, restored stability to the realm, and laid the foundations for one of the most powerful dynasties in English history. Henry's legacy is not one of glory or heroism, but of endurance. He was not the warrior his son would become, nor the visionary his granddaughter Elizabeth would be. But without his caution, none of their triumphs would have been possible. He was the survivor who turned fear into order, who understood that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply to endure. Was Henry VII a savior who restored peace to England, or a ruler so afraid of losing power that he built a kingdom of silence? The truth lies somewhere between. His reign reminds us that survival often demands sacrifice, of innocence, of trust, of warmth. In the end, Henry Tudor's greatest victory was not the Battle of Bosworth, but the quiet mastery of time itself. Against all odds, he endured, and in doing so, he created a dynasty that would define England for generations to come.